Hello neighbors, my name is Mark. I'm a professional mechanical engineer and I run a little consultancy called McGuire Mechanism. Together, you and I are going to learn the ABCs of machine design. This series is primarily exam prep for engineers in training who are pursuing their PE license, but it also will be useful as a refresher for recent graduates studying for their FE exam, and also supplemental instruction for students working toward their BS or MS degree, and also just coaching for the average person who wants to apply mechanical knowledge in the garage or on the farm. We'll just be learning the ABCs, the basics, and you won't be learning from me. We'll be leveraging the experts. Speaking of which, I discovered something the other day. It was like uncovering a hidden treasure. It was our textbook for this little course, Mechanical PE Exam Review, Machine Design and Materials, by Dr. Timothy C. Kennedy, who is now a professor emeritus. I had the honor of taking his very last course at Oregon State University. So I thought this would be a good comprehensive book for our ABCs of machine design, because it is a study guide for the PE exam, which means by default it serves as a good study guide for the FE exam. So it covers mechanical engineering course material all through undergraduate studies, and thanks Dr. Kennedy for giving us permission to use it for this course. So let's break into it. Today we're going to touch on 4 fundamental quantities. These are defined in the preface of Dr. Kennedy's book. We have the first 3, which are distance, time, and mass. And then the 4th one, which is a compound of the preceding 3, force. So let's look at distance. Most of us understand distance. We have the measure from point A to point B, a length. If we have 2 dimensions of distance, we can have an area. If we have 3 dimensions of distance, then we can have a volume. Now, time has some similarity to distance. In the same way that distance is from point A to point B, time is from the past to the future. Some physicists will include time as a 4th spatial dimension. So in the same way that we have the spatial dimensions x, y, and z, all that 3-dimensional space is moving into the future along dimension t. So we have x, y, z, and t. Mass is how much of something there is. So when you combine mass with volume, for example, you can get different measures like density. In physics, mass is the charge of the fundamental force of gravity, in the same way that electrical charge is the charge of the fundamental electromagnetic force. But what is a force anyways? This brings us to the 4th fundamental quantity. Now, there are others like temperature that we'll get to later, but right now we're looking at these 4. Remember Newton's foundational second law. Force equals mass times acceleration. F equals ma. Why do we say times? Well, it comes from an old way of speaking. I might say, I ran to the mailbox 5 times. I ran there 5 times. I ran there times 5. Can you imagine an old English person saying that? It just means you did it 5 times. 5 times over. And so when we say force is mass times acceleration, we mean that however much acceleration there is, and however much mass there is, then force is that mass multiplied into all of that acceleration. So another way to look at this is the word multiplication. So what does multiplication mean? It's an old word that means to fold. So if I take a piece of paper and I fold it, then I end up with 2 halves. I folded the paper, I multiplied the paper times 2 and ended up with 2 halves, twice the thickness that I ended up with. When you see F equals ma, that is not just F equals ma, something to memorize. That is mass multiplied into acceleration. Another way to look at this, a third way to look at this, is force is when a mass is changing its state in space-time. So we defined the space that we're talking about, x, y, z, and t, and you have mass in that 4-dimensional space-time. And if it changes state, then it is accelerating. And that can only happen by virtue of a force. And that's your homework for today. Think about that. Distance, time, mass, and force. That is your bedrock for the rest of the course. Alrighty, thanks for watching. We'll be back with more letters of the mechanical alphabet.